New concerns tonight that a critically important security measure to protect this country from terrorism will not be fully implemented. The federal government has delayed the REAL ID Act, a law to make it more difficult for terrorists, illegal aliens, and identity thieves to obtain driver's licenses. The federal government now says it will be another 9 years before that law takes full effect. Gene Meserve has our report.
Fraudulent driver's licenses help the 9/11 hijackers board planes and carry out their deadly mission. A more secure driver's license is supposed to keep that from happening again.
We are eliminating through this measure maybe 99% of the risk, maybe 99.9% of the risk.
Birth certificates, passports, social security cards, utility bills, the kinds of documents you will need to bring in person to your Department of Motor Vehicles to get or renew a license. The states will have to verify the documents are authentic, that you are who you say you are, but right now can't do that.
We are going to have to rely on electronic databases a couple of years down the road that don't currently exist.
The Department of Homeland Security has significantly reduced the cost of Real ID to the states by phasing in the program. People under 50 will get the new secure licenses by 2014, but if you are over 50, not until 2017.
Osama bin Laden is over 50.
I think if he shows up and tries to get on an airplane, we're going to spot that.
Zawahiri is over 50 years old.
Gene, it's not perfect, but the essence of risk management is to look at populations and say, by and large, when we look at the people who have gotten on planes and hijacked them, or have gotten on planes and detonated bombs, they are in the pool of 50 and under.
9/11 will be a distant memory by the time Real ID is fully implemented.
16 years after 9/11. 16 years. Is that too long?
Well, it is too long when it's 7 years after 9/11, let alone 16 years after 9/11.
Secretary Chertoff says he would have loved to have done this sooner, but states have objected so strenuously, principally because of the cost, that 6 of them have passed laws opting out of Real ID. If these new rules don't satisfy them and their licenses don't comply with Real ID, their citizens will not be able to use their licenses to enter federal buildings or board planes. You can imagine, Lou, what chaos that will cause.
Well, yeah, I can imagine the chaos, as you put it, Gene. What I can't imagine is the citizens of those states putting up with the ignorant governors and legislators that make it possible for those states to opt out. That's actually to act against the interests of the population and the residents of those states.
Well, you can bet that the Department of Homeland Security is hoping that the citizens of those states put pressure on their state legislatures and get those measures reversed and get them compliant with Real ID. That's exactly one of the points they're trying to make today.
And one of the things I guess I could hope for, while I'm wishing and hoping, Gene, and if you will, wish and hope along with me, is that the next administration will have the firepower, the fire in its belly, and the sense of responsibility of the American people to make certain that all security measures are acted upon quickly and in a timely fashion, rather than the way in which this administration has acted in the years since September 11th. Gene, thank you very much. Gene Meserve, we appreciate it. Part of New York Governor Eliot Spitzer's argument. Remember when he wanted to grant driver's licenses to illegal aliens before then he was forced to abandon that plan? Well, he said other states were moving in that direction, so it was no problem for him to do so as well. Well, Governor Spitzer was wrong in every instance. In fact, Governor Spitzer, take a look. 3 out of the 8 states that you cited that were offering licenses to illegal aliens have now ended that policy. Bill Tucker reports on those states retreating from that policy to issue driver's licenses to illegal aliens.
The retreat is underway by states who grant driver's licenses to illegal aliens. There were 8 states offering illegals a legal document to drive, but now there are 5. Scratch the names of Oregon, Michigan, and Hawaii from the list. Michigan's Attorney General ruling that it would be inconsistent with federal law for the state of Michigan to effectively grant legal status to persons who under federal law are deemed to be unlawfully present. In a ruling issued December 27th, the Attorney General wrote, quote, "Only a resident of Michigan may be issued a Michigan's driver's license. A person who is not a lawful resident of the United States cannot be a resident of this state for purposes of obtaining a driver's license." In his ruling, Attorney General Cox also cited security concerns.
Driver's license is much more than a card that allows you to get an automobile. It allows you to close on a loan and a home. It allows you to get, most importantly, in airports and public transportation.
The state of Oregon, too, is reversing its policy, and as of February 4th, it will no longer issue driver's licenses to illegal aliens. Hawaii insists that it does not give driver's licenses to illegal aliens, saying that it requires all applicants have valid Social Security numbers.
The tide is moving in this country towards stricter, higher standards, and you're going to see the Democratic nominee and the Republican nominee, they are going to understand from the electorate that the American people want this to happen.
In Maine, there have been efforts to reverse the state's policy, but the governor refuses, despite the conviction by the U.S. attorney there of individuals who transported illegal aliens to Maine specifically to get them driver's licenses. That refusal also stands in the face of a recent investigation of active Maine driver's licenses, which found more than 5,700 driver's licenses have been issued to drivers with the Social Security number 999999999. And in addition to those, there are another 2,500 driver's licenses issued to people with no Social Security number. Lou, clearly the logic of Michigan has yet to make it to Maine.
Well, I don't understand Maine, which is supposedly a bastion of independent-minded Americans, putting up with a DMV that would allow that number 999 on those Social Security, on those driver's licenses, others without it. I mean, are the people of Maine going to put up with this nonsense from that?
There are efforts underway to try and repeal the policy, but the governor and the Secretary of State, their answer, Lou, is what we've heard so many times, which is, well, you know, this isn't our problem. Federal government created this problem.
They're just complete idiots. I mean, let's be really honest. It may not be entirely their jurisdiction, but those driver's licenses speak to the very security of the residents of their state. These are irresponsible state officials. And I'd be delighted to have the governor join me here, the Secretary of State, to defend this kind of nonsense. And by the way, the fact that we're seeing these states withdraw that ridiculous policy of giving driver's licenses to illegal aliens, perhaps even the governor of Maine could wake up long enough to figure out it was not in the interest of his citizens. Perhaps the citizens of Maine could point it out to him. Is he a Democrat, a Republican, and then what the heck is he?
He's a Democrat, and you think he might be persuaded by the convictions by the U.S. attorney up there of people trafficking in illegal aliens to Maine to get driver's licenses.
I've got to say, Americans in any state in this union have got to get rid of governors who act like this. This is irresponsible. This is acting against the interests of the United States. I mean, this is total dereliction and irresponsibility. I mean, it is absurd. The Michigan Attorney General, my gosh, he is pointing out what is the fundamental logic of the situation, and it seems to me at least, the law. What in the world has happened in Michigan?
Well, he's doing something that's very interesting because he takes an argument traditionally used by the open border illegal alien advocates, which is the states can't do anything because it's a federal jurisdiction. Right. And he said, you're right. It is a federal jurisdiction. And under federal law, these people are here illegally. So we can't confer legal status on them by giving them a state-issued document.
And every attorney general in the union should be paying attention to it, and every illegal employer of illegal aliens in this country ought to be paying attention, because folks have had a bellyful of this elitist nonsense coming from both political parties saying, you know, go ahead, we're going to wink and nod and let you hire illegal aliens and confer the rights and benefits of citizenship on those who are here illegally. The Attorney General of Michigan, Michael Cox is his name?
Cox, yes.
I mean, he is to be complimented for setting a foundation for a perspective on law that should be absolutely followed across this country.
Well, you know, and we should point out, he was just reelected, so he's clearly in step with the mainstream people of Michigan. He was reelected in 2006.
And based on the polls, I would say he's in perfect order with the American people and the will of the majority here. Bill Tucker, thank you. Well, still ahead, Senator Clinton. Well.